Hello, my name is Eric Kinsey. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, and you're listening to Rulers and Riders, the podcast where we talk to creative people about what they do and or what they ride. I met Joeseph Zentil last year at Apocalypse Run. We both ended up in the chase truck on the way back from the UP. We made fast friends and shared freewheeling conversation all the way back to Grand Rapids. The topics range from music to film to literature and chopper history. I knew that Joey had done some work with Vice magazine and had a strong Instagram presence, but it wasn't until he sent me his resume that I realized the depth and breadth of his career as a filmmaker. In addition to his short original subjects, notably the poignant story of a single dad and his son, Jose and Eli, Joey has worked with several music acts, Coca-Cola, and in 2011 was nominated for an MTV Video Award for Krayshawn's Gucci Gucci. Humble, talented, and possessing a strong work ethic, Joey is settling into his new place in rural Ontario, where he continues to focus on his new film work. You can keep up with Joey by following his Instagram at Joey Paycheck, all one word. This one runs a little bit long, but the conversation was flowing, so I let the tape roll. I hope you dig it. Let's talk to Joey. If you don't want to, or if it doesn't flow, but so how you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. Got a lot on the table right now. I bought an old farm, and I'm redoing the house. I turned the first floor. It had an old barn on the property, so the first project was to convert the first floor of the barn into like a little bit of a garage and a little bit of a studio. And that's done, and I've like officially moved into there, but the house is still like pretty much gutted. Yeah. So there's like so much to be done there. Right. And I'm just on the tip of the iceberg with that. So it's taking up a tremendous amount of my time.
Man. Are you still living in Toronto too?
Yeah, right now. So my story's kind of crazy, and I've been all over, and I've lived in many cities. But for the last 3.5, I guess almost 4 years, I've lived in Toronto.
Yeah,
and I'll probably end up living here for another 3, maybe 4 years. And then I think ultimately I'll probably go back to Los Angeles. Right. Or I'll do 6 months on, 6 months off, split between Los Angeles and Toronto.
Yeah, that actually sounds like the best plan to me.
You can go a little crazy if you just stay on the West Coast indefinitely.
Oh, dude, I love and loathe LA at like equally at the same time. Like it's such a fantastic place, and it's you know, like the Beach Boys songs, like Good Vibrations. It really does have like a it's weird. It's like it has a magical quality to it. Like there really is something in the air there that you know, is just super cool, and the weather's fantastic. There's mountains and beaches, and you know, just tons of like cool, awesome, funny, creative people. But it's just like the traffic is awful. I mean, like I've complained about this on the podcast before, but it's crazy, man. It's not that bad in New York City even. I mean, LA just has the worst traffic I've ever been in my entire life.
So I've lived in New York and Los Angeles, and I have to say the traffic in Toronto is worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And one-way street system.
Yeah.
And how you got to loop around the block if you miss your stop or whatever.
Right.
It actually keeps things moving.
Yeah.
And I guess just the sheer resources and the money they put into it, but New York, the infrastructure to me was the greatest place I ever lived. I think it's one of the greatest places in the world, obviously.
Yeah, it's charming. I mean, when you can go from like, I don't know, just like I went to school for history, like I'm a huge history nerd. And like when you can go from like, Greenpoint, Brooklyn to like Battery Park or, Chinatown or whatever, and you like, know the backstory of it and like, how the different parts came together and all that. It's incredible that it's so easy to get around, and that it's it's just really no hassle at all getting around New York. Like I find it incredibly amazing and just fun.
I've said before, you could live your whole life like Brooklyn, South Brooklyn, Lower Manhattan. Like you could live your whole life without ever leaving, and there's everything you could possibly need or ever want to do there.
Yeah.
Except for maybe some nature stuff, which is also really cool. But
Yeah. I mean, unless you want to like, have like a huge family or shoot guns or, have a car collection.
But man, people do it.
Yeah.
People have big families in Queens and Brooklyn. And people, shoot guns on Long Island. And a buddy of mine works for New York State Parks and Rec. He's like a fisheries guy out on Long Island.
Uh-huh.
He's hunting like 50 days a year.
Wow. On Long Island?
Yeah, on Long Island. He's like a New York, like a Long Island born and raised. I actually know him from photography school way back. Wow,
that's crazy. Yeah, it's weird too. I mean, I've been like all over like the 5 boroughs, but I've never been like way out on Long Island, and I've been to New Jersey a little bit, but I've never been to like Yonkers or like farther up like beyond the Bronx or anything like that. And
I mean, there's amazing stuff up there. Like Westchester is amazing, and Hastings, or however you pronounce it, and Croton on Hudson, and Scarsdale. That's a great place to grow up if you are fortunate enough to grow up in that area. And then you're like a 45-minute train ride down to the city.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's just all so integrated. Like I can't. I guess that's what I mean about like knowing the history and the backstory of the whole place. It's like it's so crazy that it all comes together and kind of flows seamlessly, and it's just I love New York, man. I love it absolutely.
I was fortunate enough when I lived there to cross paths with a lot of true New Yorkers that grew up in the city or in the tri-state area, and you grow up in a special way. You have this unfair advantage in all aspects of life, like at what you're exposed to, and just being cool, and just being forward, and the architecture and the music and everything. It's incredible.
Yeah, for sure. There's this I guess the thing I like about New York a lot, and it's kind of like an unspoken thing, it's like people from there are like really tough. Like even like the upscale people, even people that have money, like there's just like a certain, I don't know, like an extra layer of armor they have, and
I mean, real estate agents. A few of my friends do the like real estate thing, and it's like they're making deals by the minute.
Uh-huh.
They have clients that bring cash with them, and when they find a place they want, they do a cash application right there on the spot. Like, it's not like, it's not like other places in the world. It's a New York minute, and that's not an exaggeration. When you live there for a certain amount of time, you actually feel the cadence of the city, and it's like this, it's just like this, like, communal awareness and this communal way of life, I guess you could put it, and everyone just kind of, like, gets in tune with each other. It's really strange, but...
Yeah. It's, my experience, the first time I went to New York was, I think it was the summer of 1989, and I drove there because one of my friends from Germany, his sister was flying into LaGuardia, so we went and picked her up, and then we spent like a week in the city, and it was, you know, I was 19, and it was just a cool place to be, but man, it was still, like, it was, I can't remember, I don't know if that was like Dinkins or whoever the mayor was then, but I remember like going to Times Square, and it was seedy, man. I mean, it was like, you know, gnarly. And then I went back, I don't know, maybe a couple years later, like 5 or 6 years later, and it was totally different. It was like clean. It was like super safe. There was nobody beating up hookers in the street. Like, it was great.
Right. So that change happened kind of from north to south.
Right.
And when I moved to New York in 2005, I think it was, I caught the last maybe 6 months or a year and a bit of the last few remnants of that old New York. Like, when I first moved to New York, CBGB was still there, and the Bowery was still seedy, and Alphabet City was still cheap as fuck. And then by the time I left New York, there's a Duane Reade, which is like, which is like a Walgreens or whatever, on every fucking corner. Mm-hmm. Every other corner has a fucking Starbucks.
Yeah.
A one-bedroom apartment is $4,000 a month.
Right.
It became this, like, campus for like rich kids, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And nothing against that. It's cool, and, you know, live your life however you want, and I'm sure there's a community, you know, for everything, but I missed that. I didn't go to New York because I wanted to wear, like, velvet loafers and shit. I went there because, like, Sonic Youth and, like, sneakers and Tribe Called Quest and Indian Larry and all that cool shit, you know? That was New York in my mind before I got there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I never got a chance to see a show at CBGB's, but I still have...
I did, fortunately. I did.
Who'd you get to see?
Man, I saw Gorilla Biscuits reunion,
and
then I saw Bad Brains reunion with John Joeseph singing.
Wow. Whoa.
Yeah, it was fucking crazy shit.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, it's just an incredible place, and it's so weird how nice it is. But have you seen that documentary? I think it's called. I can't remember the exact title of it, but it's about like the no wave film directors, like Jim Jarmusch and like that era of filmmakers in New York.
Yeah, I did see that documentary. I think it's called just No Wave, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That was obviously like the generation before me, but
yeah,
man, I forget who. I took a class. I went to school of visual arts, but we cannibalize a lot of professors from NYU.
Uh-huh.
And one professor that I had in film school had Spike Jonze and Jim Jarmusch in the same class.
Oh, God.
And everyone was like, all right, well, spill the fucking beans. Like, well, you know, what was it like having them as students? And he was like, yeah, it was pretty simple. Yeah, sorry, not Spike Jonze, Spike Lee.
Right.
Spike Lee would sit in the front of the class, and he was like a keener and raise his hand for everything and hand his homework on time and the first guy to do everything. And Jim Jarmusch apparently was like borderline failing the class. He would sit in the back of the class with his chair facing out the window, smoking cigarettes out the window. And he was completely disinterested in the whole academic experience.
Wow.
And I was closer to a Jim Jarmusch,
Yeah.
So at the time I was like, oh, cool. Like, I'm going to use that as motivation to just keep my bad attitude up and and keep on the trajectory that I was on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which for better or worse in hindsight.
Well, let's back up a little bit. So, were you born in Toronto?
Yeah. So my dad is Canadian. My dad's from Toronto.
Uh-huh.
And my mom's from California. She's American.
Right.
So that's where the whole dual citizen thing comes into play.
Right. How did they meet?
It's kind of a cheesy story, but she's a flight attendant, and my dad just picked her up on an airplane, and then the rest is history.
Oh, I love it, man. That's fantastic. I'll give you a story that's just as cheesy, just as equally cheesy. My mom was a car hop at a hot dog stand, and my dad pulled up in his Triumph convertible, and she busted him stealing one of the root beer mugs from the hot dog stand, and so he asked her out, and then yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I love it. So
that's hilarious.
What was sort of like your initial attraction to filmmaking? I know you played music too, but which came first, and how did you end up as a filmmaker?
Right. So I mean, I feel like 99% of the people you probably speak to, my earliest memories are attributed to skateboarding.
Yeah. And
I remember getting 411 Video Magazine or early Thrasher videos or early Zero skateboard videos, and just watching them on VHS 1,000 times, not even 10,000 times, and just memorizing the soundtrack and just being so fascinated with the movies themselves. I thought they were so sick. And as much as I loved all the skating and stuff, I was never a great skater. I would watch the video, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm never gonna 360 flip a 10 set. That's not even in the realm of possibility for me.
Right.
But what I can do is maybe pick up that guitar, or maybe I could pick up a camera and shoot my buddy doing it, and and I could still be part of the experience. I'm not going to be missing out on anything.
Right.
And then I just kind of I became interested at that level, and that kind of progressed. And then as school got more serious, towards the end of high school, and everyone, has these expectations, and people want to be doctors and lawyers. I could just never see myself doing that. It just wasn't for me. And so that's when I started playing in a band. And I played in a band, and then when you're young and you play these shows, there's like 7 bands playing, or there's 10 bands playing. So you'd play your little set, which is like 15 minutes or whatever, and then you'd watch all these other bands. And after a while, I just kind of like picked up a camera and I started photographing the bands, like, in between sets or whatever, or live. And then Facebook came out like shortly after that, and I would upload these like albums to Facebook. And then after this happened so many times, people were hitting me up before I even got the negative. These weren't even digital photos. I was shooting on 35, and I was taking them to the lab and getting them scanned. It's not like it is now, right? It could be 2-3 weeks before I got around to it.
Right.
And people were messaging me on MySpace and Facebook and whatever, all these early social platforms, just being like, "Hey, dude, I play in like this band. We were on the same bill. Like, I like your photographs. Like, do you have any photos of me?" Like, and that happened a bunch of times. And then it wasn't until my band played with a couple bigger bands, and I photographed the bigger bands, that they actually used some of my photos as like press on their websites or on show flyers or whatever. And I in hindsight, I was robbed because I never got paid or credited. And I was so fucking hyped because I went to like Warped Tour one summer, and I got this like, I forget what record label it was, but it was like a compilation of all their artists, and I like open it up and I pull it out, and like my photo is blown up huge on the insert on the inside. And then it was kind of like in that moment that I was like, hey, maybe I could do this professionally. Like, this photo looks just as good printed on this leaflet, as this next guy's photo. So, and I was running out of time, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I knew I wanted to like go to college or university, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just it was the most natural thing that I was doing, and I was never thinking about it in a way like a career or money, and I think it was all the pressure from school and going to post-secondary school that kind of put me in the position of, oh, well, now I'm a filmmaker. I'm studying it. Now I'm a photographer. And I think I did what I had to do, what I thought I had to do for a long time. And it wasn't until 10 years into my career that I had to, we'll get into it, but I took some time off, and I took a step aside from what I was doing because I wasn't happy, and I wasn't satisfied creatively, and I was just kind of going through the motions and doing these projects that I didn't really care about it, and the pay was getting better, but every time the paycheck was getting better, the project was getting worse. and that was bumming me out. Like, that was bumming me out so much.
Yeah.
So I went on hiatus, and I started working all kinds of weird jobs. I just wanted to I wanted to live my life,
Sure.
And I drove a tow truck for a while. I was flipping cars for a while. I was trying to do car picking and trying to flip trucks and importing Harley parts to Canada and trying to sell them. And
right.
did lots of dumb shit,
Yeah.
Won some, lost some.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I kind of went through a similar thing where I worked my way through school most of my 20s. I was married and divorced, and the whole time I was going to school, I was working 2 or 3 different jobs, and plus I'd been married and got divorced, so I had a kid and a mortgage and stuff. So I was just fucking hustling anything I could do for money when I wasn't in class. But then I was also playing in bands, because my bands would get paid, and so I kind of accidentally on purpose work myself up to this like certain kind of level of like, regional, popularity, I guess. And then as soon as my record came out, I'd already gotten done with college and I'd started like a full-time, like a professional job. And I was like, well, I guess I'm an adult now.
What was the name of your band?
Just under my name, Eric Kinsey. But,
sweet.
Yeah. But I don't know, like I did that and I like always missed it. And I went really hard in, this other career, this horrible career I was in for a while. And it's the same thing, dude. It's just like I hated it so much. Like the money was great, but I couldn't hack it anymore. And so, I dropped out of my career for a couple years, and I was had like an antique store, and was like, that's when I started writing for magazines pretty seriously, and was like a carpenter, general contractor, and I would do I would get paid to like give speeches about architectural salvage and architectural preservation and just like all kinds of weird shit I did. But the point of me telling you that story is I think when you step back, when like things get stale, and this is like my experience creatively, when you get into like a stale period like that, and then you step back, it's like your glass fills up again, like those different experiences give you just sort of like refreshes your like creative eye to like go back and like, tackle it again.
Right.
Yeah. Are you, so I spent like the last 2 days just like looking at everything I could find out about you, and you got a pretty respectable resume, dude. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, thanks, man. My career was the only thing I cared about for so long, and then like it was my dad passed away in 2012, and that's when I kind of like had to step away from what I was doing a little bit.
Yeah.
And shit got real, and I had like a lot of family drama and like family business drama and
right.
sibling drama and mom drama, and and it just kind of took over my life.
Yeah.
And that's when I stopped being creative.
Yeah.
And then when I returned from that, I wanted to like be like passionate about something, and I really wanted to do like something that I considered to be great. And then I just ended up like doing all these like EDM music videos, for a paycheck. And
right.
then it was just like, and then I was just like, why am I doing this? And that's when I took like a second step away. Man, it's been tumultuous, this relationship with filmmaking.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And it's like, I'm 30 years old, and I've already had to step away from it twice.
Right. Yeah.
Which is cool, and I'm glad I accomplished a lot when I was young, because it's given me the freedom. A lot of my friends were fucking around when they were really young, and I was so serious, and I wasn't going out, and I was doing all this shit, and I was so serious about it.
Uh-huh.
And then now I see all my friends in their 30s like struggling to get it together, and I'm maybe like not as serious as I should be, and I'm like enjoying my life now, and I just think it's funny because I always take like a fucking backwards approach to everything.
Yeah.
And that's almost like been the theme for everything I do.
Yeah. So it looked like, so as I was going through like your Vimeo and your YouTube channel, so I looked at some of the like movie trailers that you made, Were those just like movie trailers as a project, or did you actually make those into movies? Like Fearless.
Which one are you talking about?
There's like a trailer for a movie called Fearless. There's one for The Motel, and there was one for It Kills.
Right. So It Kills. All right, I'll start with the Fearless exists. It's on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, it's like 10 minutes or something, but we shot it on 16 millimeter black and white film. And, for the people that don't have any context, it's a short documentary about a guy named Dave Lang. He's a pro aggressive inline skater. So he's like a rollerblade guy that does these insane tricks, and he at the time he was really talented in the dock, super cool, but he was really young. And 10 years later, he went on to be this like X Games skater and do these mega ramps, and he did extra work doing stunts in like a Robert Rodriguez film.
Yeah.
He did some work on rollerblades in a James Cameron film. So that, I don't know where, I believe it's on YouTube. You can just look it up. It's called Fearless.
Right on.
That came out. That was actually, I went to school with him. That was a project. That was over 10 years ago, I think.
Right.
But the other one is The Motel. That was another project I did when I was in school. It exists. I can send you a link to it. I don't think I ever made it public. I don't know why. It was pretty cool. It was kind of just a short film about nothing, but it's like a guy and a girl, and there's some stolen money involved, and the guy doesn't trust the girl, and they have a falling out, and it was just kind of like a little vignette of this like relationship of these two criminals on the run. It's like very film school, like romanticized, like cool young people, and I had like a 65 Mustang is like the opening shot. You could see where, if you go back, to these projects you're talking about, I did these so long ago. You could see what I'm into now, and like it's a pretty obvious progression.
Yeah. Well, that's something I noticed about your work. It's like you've got like a pretty wide swath of culture involved in what you do. Like, I mean, you're not. One thing I'll tell you, like one thing that kind of like colors a lot of like my vision of the world is I was like super into rockabilly for a long time, for like 15, maybe 20 years, and so I got so used to people being like, I'm this, I only play music from 1945 to 1959, and I only play vintage guitars, and I only wear these style of clothes, and it's one thing I really enjoy about your work is like you're not pigeonholed on anything, man. Like you're obviously like really clued in to you like the hip hop videos you do, the motorcycle stuff, the skating stuff. It's pretty impressive. I'm always in awe of somebody who can be really good, have a good ear and a good eye for like a lot of different approaches to things.
There's a couple reasons for that. First of all, like, as some fucking kid from Toronto, like, I never had the luxury of just, I didn't grow up a cycle zombie, Like, I didn't grow up around, like, 50 choppers, and my dad builds choppers, and it was just, like an obvious thing for me to get into.
Right.
All the things my siblings are into, or my parents were into, or my peer, like, I've never been into that shit that they're into, and I everyone in Canada likes hockey, and they like going to the bar, and they like, you know, BMWs, and I'm not into that. I'm not into that shit. I guess because I'm half American, I always like identified with that. And growing up in freezing ass Toronto, I'd go to like LA for 2 months or 3 months in the summer, or mostly San Diego because that's where my mom was from. And I just like obsessed. And I would go to summer camp there, and you know, at the time, kids are listening to Sublime and Epitaph bands and all this shit going on, and No Effects and bleached hair and baggy jeans and cool custom cars, and you know, and I was, even though I was really young, and I was kind of like, motorcycles were on my mind, and I got a dirt bike really young, and I was kind of ripping it, not only on like, you know, on the track or like, you know, trails or whatever, but I would bring it home and like ride it around my neighborhood. I would ride it like through the public park in my neighborhood until somebody, you know, a buddy of mine down the street had a dirt bike too. A couple of buddies of mine randomly. We all had these like little dirt bikes, and we would terrorize the neighborhood, and then somebody would call the cops, and we'd, you know, fucking rush home and shut the garage and go up to my bedroom on the second floor and like look out the windows, you know, and just doing dumb shit like that.
Yeah. That was, stuff like that when I was a kid was a blast. It's, I don't know. I guess something that all those things where you've, you know, like had a hand in different cultures or different, you know, subcultures, is they're all very anti-authoritarian. Like they're all very, you know, like kind of a fuck you attitude toward the world.
So I never I like skateboarders, and I like graffiti guys, and I like rappers, and I like punk rock dudes, but I never became just one guy like you were saying. I was never a rockabilly guy or a metal guy.
Right.
But I always understood what those people were trying to do. So as you know, you're like, there's a commonality of the authority thing, and I think that's obviously what attracted me to it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, like, oh, you're a rapper, you had this shitty upbringing, you know, you want the same things in life that, you know, when you boil it down, we kind of have the same interests, and, you know, we do like some of the same stuff, and we don't like some of the same stuff, which is ultimately more important, and you can relate to that, and then you can kind of become a part of it, and being an artist or a filmmaker, it's cool because you get to walk around with this lens and point it at whatever you want, and then you could also have the luxury of stepping away from it.
Right.
And I guess I also liked that. Not because I didn't want to commit to something, but because I had so many interests that I didn't want to just commit to one thing because I had so many interests. Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, like I'm the same way, dude. Like I have like a, you know, wide myriad of interests, but my brain gets bored. Like, I mean, you know, I kind of do, like, I'll go out to the garage and work on my bike or, you know, van or something for like a night, and then the next night I'll come in and like play guitar, and then maybe the next night after that I'll just like, you know, write, or, you know, or some nights I'll just sit and like watch history videos, or, you know, fucking like videos about axes, or just, you know, making knives or some crap like that. Cause that,
or what about in your garage tinkering on your bike while watching a YouTube video on some historical thing from your phone, and then, you know, intermixing that with little jam sessions on your guitar, and then by the end of the night you spread yourself so thin that you didn't even accomplish anything. I'm in that situation so often, you know? It's the curse of the ADD.
Yeah, totally. That is exactly what happens, and, like, it takes me, you know, so, like, Reese, you know, our buddy, I'm always, he's probably, seriously, he's built 4 bikes in the time I've had my bike. And, like, my bike's, like, 99% done, but, like, that kid just, like, he's just, like, fucking single-minded, and, like, I admire that. I wish I could be that way. I'm not, you know, like, I just, like, jump around, like, all the time. So.
Yeah, and I don't know Reese that well, and, you know, hopefully I become better friends with him over time, but he seems to have, well, he's like Seamus, and Seamus is our other buddy, and they both just have this goal where they want to build choppers, which is so sick, and I wish, you know, I was even half as talented as either one of them, respectively.
Right.
But you know, they don't care about playing guitar. They don't care about cooking. They don't care, you know, they just want to build fucking choppers.
Yeah.
And I think the best people in the world at their crafts are people that are fortunate enough to be like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sorry to cut you off.
No. I have a lot of it.
Paul Thomas Andersons or the Goddards or the you know whoever you can compare somebody to.
Yeah.
These are people that had one sole focus and they truly had that vision and stuck with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a huge admiration for people that are specialists, but I probably told the story before, but I'll tell it again. I remember going to see this band in Fort Wayne, Indiana, because they were playing with, you know, a friend of mine from Nashville. And, man, they came out, and, like, the opening band, and, like, they all had on, like, you know, great clothes, like, cool Western shirts, and, you know, dudes, like, you know, good-looking dudes, and good-looking band. They all had vintage guitars, and good hair, and just... And they ripped, man. They were just like a great, you know, really awesome honky-tonk country band. And the guitar player especially was just, like, fantastic. Like, he was throwing in all these, like, you know, referential, you know, licks to, like, Don Rich and Roy Nichols and, you know, Junior Bernard and, you know, all these great country guitar players I love. And so, like, you know, after the show, they're like, oh, we're going to go back over here and hang out at, you know, why don't you come over with us? So I was like, yeah, cool. So I was with a couple girls, and, you know, we went over there, and this dude, the awesome guitar player, comes out, and he walks out, and he's wearing boat shoes, cargo shorts, a golf, like a Titleist golf shirt, and he's got a copy of Newsweek in his hand, and he sits down and, like, has his own little cooler of Michelob Ultra, and he's just sitting there reading Newsweek, and I was like, man, what the fuck? Like, I thought you were a cool dude. It's like, I mean, cool dude in his own way, but it was just such a letdown, you know, because it was like, he was only, like, a cool guitar player on stage, and then off stage, he's a pretty normal, straight-laced guy. So I don't know.
Well, that's what they, not that he was, but that's why they say don't meet your heroes or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, man, I'm like you. I never wanted to be that guy. I wanted to live my life on my own terms and, you know, find my satisfaction in creating, you know, what I couldn't find in the world otherwise.
Right.
How did you, as far, like, it's funny, dude, because, like, well, I'll tell, like, quickly the little story about how we met. So, Joey and I met on the Apocalypse Run, and he had come, I'd never met him or Seamus before, but they, you know, I just knew they were these two dudes from Canada, and so I was driving the chase truck because Reese had like broke his tailbone in a tragic jet skiing accident. So we were like team chase truck, which was ended up being pretty fun. But so Seamus broke down first, and so everybody's like in the truck but me. Like I was driving, everybody in the truck but me is drinking, and like we're just like blasting music and like telling stories and like having a great time. And then this other dude, Marcus from Cleveland, his bike broke down, so it was like the four of us. And then Marcus fixed his bike, and so then it was like three of us, then four of us, and then three of us again. Anyway, by the time we get almost like we leave the Upper Peninsula, Joey's bike had like the tank had sprung this leak of gasoline, and the dude was just like not gonna give up. He was like, fuck it, I'm going for it. And didn't you try to use like some like epoxy putty or like
oh man, it started on the way. It started. I had a little micro drip leak before I even got to Reese's. I knew I had this little leak, but I wanted to ride and do the trip, and it really wasn't that bad.
Right.
And so the day before the ride at Reese's, he actually helped me, and we did like baking soda and super glue.
Right.
And then that kind of like didn't work. And then we did like quick seal, like tank putty. I used so much shit, and that wasn't working. So then I had a rag tied around my gas tank like a big diaper, and then with a bungee cord, and then anyway. So while that drama was happening, my primary was fucking rattling itself to death. And by the time we were halfway up to the Upper Peninsula, the cap had the outer primary had come off. And then by the time we got over the bridge, the inner primary was completely off, but it couldn't just come off because it was stuck behind the chain, right?
Yeah.
So that was happening, and then the tank leak got so bad that all my gas leaked out, and I ran out of gas just after the bridge. And then this dude who's a good guy, Coop, do you know Coop?
Yeah.
Yeah, Coop, that was how I met him. He pulled over for me, gave me some gas, and I'm kicking the fucking bike to get it to go, and the arm for the kicker snaps in half.
Oh, Jesus.
So as this is happening, a bunch of the Detroit dudes pull up, and they're laughing at me because they see the kicker and everything, and Coop's filling them in. So they're all like, we're going to give you a bump. And I was on this massive, like, uphill. So they, like, push me down the hill, and they're running. And I bump it in second, and I'm keeping the throttle on. And I have to do this, like, stupid tight U-turn with my ape hangers. And eventually, I get it going, and I make it to the bar in the town next to Strong's where everyone stops, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I park the bike and I let it die, and then I'm like, all right, that's it. I guess it's game over. And then we hang out at the bar for a bit, and I find out that the truck is gone. The chase truck's gone with the trailer, basically stranded there. And I'm like, fuck, I need to get to the campsite, which is 15 minutes away.
Sorry, man.
So bad at this point. So Seamus manages to kick the bike for me. I guess his foot's a little smaller than mine or whatever, but he kicks it off of the broken kick lever.
Oh, shit.
Which I don't know how he does it, because my bike's a bitch to kick, and he manages to do it. So I get to the campsite, and then I let my bike sit for 24 hours, and I didn't look at it or touch it or anything. I was kind of pissed, and I was just drinking and having fun with everyone.
Uh-huh.
And then I think it was on the Saturday, or when did we leave Reese's? Friday.
Right.
Friday morning.
Right.
So it was like Saturday afternoon at this point, and Seamus helped me get it all apart, and he like tin snipped the primary and stuff because we didn't have all the tools we needed to get everything off. And then basically what we ended up doing was going down the road to this like farmer dude who had a stick weld set up in his barn, and we took my broken shift linkage and directly welded it onto the can.
Yeah, I remember that.
So that I had to hand shift it. So I had to clutch with my left hand clutch, and then reach over my bike and then shift like where a jockey shift would be. But while this is happening, it's a chain primary, and there's no cover on it. So I'm terrified that my hand's going to get chewed off.
Fuck.
But I eventually get it all rigged up, and, Joel, DT Customs helped me.
Uh-huh.
Seamus helped me, and then another dude who's a welder, I forget his name, Josh, I think. He helped me as well. And the next day when we took off, I ended up leaving with the Cleveland guys, Marcus, one of them, and I rode with them until basically an hour or two south, but I just couldn't do it anymore because my tank was leaking so fucking bad that it was a constant drip, and then my primary was so loose that it was sparking. So I was looking down and I would get a gas drip, and then I would get a spark, and then I would get a gas drip, and then I would get a spark, and I'm like, fuck, if this spark and the gas drip happens at the same time, like, this is game over.
Dude, you're gonna turn into Ghost Rider on the way back.
I'm literally gonna turn into Ghost Rider. So we were at this gas station, and it's like 20 minutes from the breakfast stop. And I go in and I get this can of WD-40, and I'm like, I'm going to lube this up as best as I can so the spark stops.
Uh-huh.
And Seamus ended up coming through with this like snowmobile or like ATV crankcase lubricant, which was like a little bit heavier, and so we doused my primary in that, and I made it another 20 minutes, and by the time we got there, I was like, all right, that's it. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
My jeans were fully soaked in gas.
You were, dude.
My coat was soaked in gas. I was like, I just didn't even, that was it. It couldn't go any further than that, you know?
Yeah. You were, I don't know. It was a pretty fun drive back from there, though. Was it all right?
Oh yeah. Well, that's how we became friends.
Yeah, exactly, man.
In a nutshell.
Yeah, exactly. After you put your bike in the trailer, yeah, that was pretty cool. So that was back in August. So you bought the farm since then. What are you doing as far as like filmmaking? What are you doing as far as work and stuff?
Well, I just finished a short doc on a band.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be coming out probably next month sometime.
Uh-huh.
And then I have another music video I'm doing for a friend of mine, but he's also a local artist here, and he played in a very popular hardcore band growing up called No Warning.
Uh-huh.
And he's a super good guitar player, but he has this whole other side where he makes this like rap folk music and this like kind of blues and country rooted stuff. So he has a debut LP that he's putting out. So I'm going to do a video for him for one of the tracks. And then on top of all that, I have a couple scripts that I've shopped around for years, and they've been optioned, and my options expired, and I basically have some new interest in a couple of my projects, so I'm pursuing that, trying to get one of my features off the ground. But ultimately, the project that I'm passionate about that's been circling in my head for a while is doing something, bike-related, like a good chopper film. And I don't know if that would mean something realistic or if it would be something more narrative. But, I like 21 Days Under the Sun or whatever, and I really like 6 Over, and I've watched every second of motorcycle content I could find, not only because I'm a filmmaker, but because I ride bikes and I'm into it, and I just love watching it.
Right.
So I really feel like there's a need and there's space and opportunity to make more films about motorcycles, and especially ones about the kind of bikes we're into.
Right.
It's a small community that likes these old school choppers with rigid frames and vintage engines and
right.
Hunting out rare parts that are made in England or whatever.
Right.
Whatever your part of the niche is, there's this general community, and it's pretty small, that's into this, really specific thing. And I think people are so passionate about it, they commit their lives to it, and it becomes their lifestyle. And it's, it inspires art, and it inspires music, and it's inspired movies historically.
Right.
But I can name all the famous biker films. I could count them on both my hands. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, dude, yeah. And
how many films are there about baseball? How many films are there about race car driving?
Yeah.
How many films are there about fucking falling in love?
Right. I'm the same way. Like, I've tried to search out every motorcycle related film I could find. There's this one I found. I don't even remember even where I found it. I watched it years ago, but it was about these dudes that it was made in the 30s in England, and the title of it was called Once a Jolly Swagman, and it's about these guys that race dirt bikes in England in the 30s. It's like a really good movie, but it's super.
Yeah, I would love to. Do you have a link?
Yeah, if I can.
Anything you have on that, I would love to see that.
Yeah, if I can find the link, I'll totally send it to you. It's worth checking out. But I probably watch the Wild one once a month, if not more. I'm super obsessed with that movie. I've, just everything about it. I'm obviously an Easy Rider too. I know that sounds trite, but Easy Rider, as far as motorcycle movies, it's just a great movie, and the interstitial action or whatever you call it is just happens to be on motorcycles, and and they're fantastic motorcycles, and the acting is great, the directing is great, the screenplay is great, the secondary players are great, Jack Nicholson, that's one of my favorite roles he's ever done. Karen Black's great, Tony Basil's great. It's just Phil Spector even is in it, and I'm for a while I was super obsessed with just finding out everything I could about that movie. I interviewed a dude from Louisiana, and he knew not the guy with the shotgun at the end, but the guy that was driving the truck. And he's like, I've seen his, cat hat, his caterpillar hat hanging on the wall of his house. He still has it from the movie. And, I love bike movies, but You're right, dude. I like bike documentaries also, but there hasn't been a great biker movie made in a long time. And not like even like an homage to like biker exploitation movies or whatever, but just a good narrative movie of like.
I see. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't make a movie set in 1966.
No.
Like, I wouldn't do that. I would make a movie about young people in 2019 riding choppers.
Right.
And whether that's about a guy that runs a garage and he's having hard times, or a dude that robs banks and he just rides choppers, or
right.
Maybe a guy that's just like, I don't know, going through like some kind of like personal problem, and it's part. Often the movie isn't about the intangible object, right? That's
correct.
That's the lens that the story is shown through. When you watch a race car movie, it's not about the racing of the cars. It's about the relationship between the two drivers or whatever, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the story, so what, out of all these people I'm friends with in this community that ride bikes or play music or in the rockabilly scene or the custom car scene, what's the story there? I know these people. I see the problems that they deal with on a daily basis. How do I tell a story? And I use the world of choppers, but I'm not making a documentary about motorcycles. I'm telling a story about bikers. How do I make that a worthwhile story? Or even better, what's the story?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I have some ideas.
I keep wanting to say John Cassavetes. Like, that's just on the tip of my,
or even
super organic and grassroots, and just something that's not based on some fantastical bullshit,
Yeah, something that was just one movie that I really like, and it's definitely not a biker movie, but what the hell was the dude's name? But he shit. But he made this movie called Bubble, and it's about Gallipolis, Ohio, and it's about these people that work in the last American doll factory. Like, they make dolls, and it's been a long time since I've seen it, but the dude shot it all on HD video. It was just like him and a boom guy, and it's a really great movie. He used non-professional actors, but he, like very loose dialogue. Like, most of the dialogue was improvisational. Like, he would just give the actors.
That's kind of my style. So my narrative stuff blurs documentary, and I like working with non-actors.
Right.
I fucking hate the idea of a guy that wakes up every day and he's like, I'm an actor. I'm like, what the fuck is that? That's nothing. So if I want to, for real though, like, and I don't mean to be a dick. Obviously I respect actors, but but
it's hard.
If I want to film a guy that's like a screen printer, I don't want somebody to pretend to fucking be screen printing shirts. I want to go out to like the outskirts of whatever shitty city, go to an industrial unit, find the sweaty ass dude wearing a Bad Brain shirt, screen printing fucking shirts, and film him. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Because that's like, why would I just pretend when the real thing is there? And that's always been one of my like motifs for everything.
Yeah, I always like Cassavetes' style. Like, I like Harmony Korine, like the way his films are made.
One of my professors in film school, not to go on for hours here, but I had this professor, his name is Ramin Barani, and he's a younger dude, and he's like an Iranian-American guy, and he grew up in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, super broke, and at the butt end of a lot of racism and poverty and all this shit. Through all that, he ended up getting a scholarship to Columbia, and becoming like a really, really well-known indie filmmaker. But his first break was a film he did called Man Push Cart. And I don't know if there's any New Yorkers listening to this or if you've been to New York, but like in most cities where they have hot dog vendors, in New York they also have like coffee and donut street vendors. They have like these little carts.
Right.
So this guy is like a bagel and donut and coffee guy that pushes this cart around New York City. But he shot it on like a DV camera, and he made it on a shoestring budget, and he edited it himself, and he literally did every indie filmmaker trick in the book. And this film was such a success, and it had all these accolades, and it screened at all these awesome film festivals. And it was like a couple of years before he was my professor, and it was all kind of new to me. And it was seeing that, I'm like, oh shit, if I want to be a filmmaker, I don't need to be like making Indiana Jones and X-Men. That's $100 million movie or a $300 million movie. That's not obtainable for me. I only need a couple grand, a handy cam, 2 real people, and a script that I can write myself. And it was in understanding that, which is funny because I always like punk rock music, which has this like DIY mentality, but I was never able to really put the two together. And it was seeing his work kind of hit me in the face, and then being exposed to all these other indie filmmakers, Lars von Trier, and all these European filmmakers or like new American filmmakers, and that's to me what gave me the idea of you could still go do something great, and you could make something awesome and make it worthwhile and make it genuine, and you can do it on a shoestring budget, and you don't need a studio, and you don't need some fucking asshole in a suit telling you to change the script, and you don't need to be fucking censored, and you don't need anything. All you need is yourself and the people that are willing to fucking help you, and you should just go fucking do it. And that's really, for a long time, I kind of lived by that, and I kind of fell away from that, and now more than ever, I want to get back to that, because to me, that's what I identify as. That to me is what makes me tick.
Right. Yeah, and there's like a certain vitality in that too. Like there's a lot of truth, and like I don't know. I'm the same way. Like I get things that are like overcomplicated and fancy. Like that's just not my style. I would rather have less and try to do more and make something cool by my own wits and by my own, talent and intuition, rather than have some, expensive formula to fall back on that seems a little too easy for me.
It's like when I go to a bike show, or like I've been to Born Free a few times. You walk, I'm walking with my buddy through the invited builder section, and he turns to me, he's like, yo, which one is your favorite? I'm like, honestly, my favorite bike is the dirty-ass panhead in the parking lot with the T-bars and the blacked-out tank, and, the bike. I don't really like this, like, Easter egg shit with all the sparkles and crazy fucking devil painted on it and all this shit. That's not for me. Right. I just like simple stuff.
Yeah. Well,
I just like really simple stuff, and if it's done well, that's good enough. Not only is it good enough, but it's all I ever wanted, and I don't want more than that.
Yeah, I've often said that what has attracted me to choppers is this is kind of off, but I'll bring it back around. So when I was a little kid, I've always really loved history, and especially like military history, and I've always been like fascinated with like automatic rifles. Like I the pre-automatic rifle is fine, whatever. But like I've always been like, super fascinated with like automatic rifles and like submachine guns, and I've always like looked at at a chopper as sort of like the submachine gun of motorcycles because it's so cut down, it's so basic, it's so distilled down to its just most necessary elements that it makes it perfect. It's like you don't need a speedometer, you don't need turn signals. I mean, I like front brakes, but a lot of people don't run front brakes. I mean, I love that simplicity. And
I think as long as roads have existed, people have romanticized about the open road, and I think a Harley Davidson chopper is the fucking coolest, most elite way you could go down an open road. In my opinion.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't get better than that. Like, you cannot beat a 4-speed, rigid frame, shovel header earlier, fucking chopper going down. Until you're the guy on that bike going down the road, or an Evo chopper or whatever, like, until you're that guy going down the road, you just don't get it.
No. And
you just don't fucking get it.
No.
It's that simple.
And there have been times when I'm like driving and I'll find some like really cool twisty road with some nice hills and shady spots along like a creek or a river or something, and I'll just be like, man, this is cool, but I wish I was on my bike. Like, it would be infinitely better if I was on my bike. My enjoyment level would be so much higher. And yeah, you're right. And until you do it, there's no way to describe it for sure.
There's nothing else I do in my life that while I'm doing it, I'm like, whoa, I feel alive.
Yeah. And man, it's like some of the stories you've told me about, like people you've worked with or worked for, that's a pretty big statement. I mean, really, because you've done some pretty cool shit, Joey.
I mean, I feel fortunate in a lot of ways, and that's cool. But as I said earlier, like, don't meet your heroes, and not necessarily that these people are my heroes or whatever, but man, it's like everyone is a human being, and everyone is just kind of like has the same shit going on in one way or another, regardless of the scope. And at the end of the day, that's not what, I don't think, to me, like, that's not what the end be all end all is. It's cool to meet other cool people and to connect with humans. Like, that's in many ways, that's the meaning of life.
Right.
Or one of the meanings of life.
Yeah.
But it's not comparable. To me, riding a motorcycle is something completely unique that I can't compare anything else to. That is such a sensory overload with the element of danger and doing something where you are being forced to be so present.
Yeah.
And maybe like a great music, like Stevie Ray Vaughan when he's performing, or maybe that's what he's feeling when he's on stage.
Right.
And but when I'm on set, like shooting a music video, I don't feel like, oh my God, I'm alive. I'm like, oh, I'm stimulated. This is interesting.
Yeah.
But when I'm ripping through like Joshua Tree, tapped out in 5th gear or whatever, 4th gear on a chopper, you can't compare that feeling.
No. And there's just nothing like it.
Nothing else matters. No, you could be broke. You could be sick. You could have family. Like, none of that. When you're on your bike, none of that shit should be on your radar. If it is, you got to pull over because you're not riding safe. You know?
Yeah. There's that Hunter S. Thompson quote, and I remember this from like being a little kid and riding dirt bikes through the woods. But I think about this one a lot. He said, "Keep riding faster until the thrill of speed overcomes the fear of death." And like, I remember doing that when I was a little kid, just like hauling ass through the woods, just like pinned on the throttle on my little Kawasaki 75 dirt bike. And, and coming out the other side, but there'd be several times when I'd bite it, but it's just like, so what, man? You get up and dust yourself off and you do it again. And you're right. There really is nothing else like it. Like, not even close.
That was me on my 80cc Suzuki dirt bike,
dude. Yeah. Well, and I think the reason why I end up talking to a lot of people that have like a common background and like dirt bikes, skating, punk rock, especially like those, three things. It's because to get the entry point is obtainable, so if you've at least got a dad that has a job, you could probably find some old beat to shit dirt bike. And so that's a great entry point. And if you've got a mom or dad that can afford to get you a guitar, that's a great entry point. If you got a mom or dad that can afford to get you a skateboard, that's a great entry point. But like what you do with it from there, like once you get over the like trepidation and fear, it instills in you this sense of confidence to take on like even bigger challenges and even bigger projects. And I don't know, man, I wouldn't trade that for anything in my life. Those early experiences gave me so much confidence to take my life in all other kinds of directions.
And my dad was super good growing up to me. Like, I'm like, oh, I want to play hockey this month. Boom, here's a hockey stick. I want to BMX this month. Boom, here's a BMX. And I was always really appreciative and fortunate of that. But at the same, now that I'm getting older, I'm like, oh shit, I might have a kid one day. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll give you a guitar, but the next month when you want a hockey stick, if I don't give it to you, maybe you'll just stick with the guitar, and you won't end up ADD like me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah. Yeah, that's yeah. No kidding.
No, but in all seriousness, variety is obviously, as they say, the spice of life. And I just think exposing yourself to as much as you can before making the decision, I'm going to be this kind of person or I'm going to be that kind of person. It's not a bad idea, because if you're obsessed with rockabilly for 20 years, you might, on the end of the tunnel, you might discover you really like jazz,
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. I love that too. But yeah, it's I don't know, man. I think it's like, I think for a lot of creative people, it's sort of like, many different roads and the same destination. I'm always, that's why I started doing this podcast, because I'm just like super interested in other people's creative process and like how that, you're like nominated for an MTV Video Award, and that's, crazy to me. It's awesome. But yeah, I didn't even know you made that video, and I was like, whoa, wow, that's insane. But because I remember watching that video when it came out and just being like, this is super cool, you know? And I don't know. It's not. If you would have told me like 7 or 8 years ago, like, hey, in the future you're gonna like meet and become friends with the guy that directed this girl rapper from Oakland, and you're gonna like, you know, hang out with him and like drive through Michigan and eat Arby's and, you know, talk about Indian Larry, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is a small world, and you know, once you've been exposed to all these things and you decide the things that you want to pursue or just, you know, delve into more deeply, then you really start to realize in this community, it's a small amount of people. In this community, you know, there's a small amount of people. In this community, there's a small amount of people. And I think that's good because you want to ultimately be around like-minded people. Not only to, you know, for the sheer sake of acquaintanceship, if that's a word, but also because you want to workshop your ideas and you want feedback and you want to, you know, and you want to, ultimately that's the way to better yourself. And it's also the way to do something meaningful is when you are doing it and you can share it with other people.
Yeah.
You want to do it for yourself, but there's a certain joy. Once you have done something for yourself and you like it and you can stand behind it, there's a certain joy in sharing it. At that point, and only at that point, in my opinion, that's when you can have joy in sharing that.
Right. Yeah. Totally agree right there, man. For sure. It's I don't know. It's funny in these like times of social media. I forget because like I'm an old dude. Like I'm 40, almost 49. It's so funny with like social media now because like it's the feedback loop is so quick. You know, like you know, you put up a picture, people like it or whatever. But I really kind of forgot that like in the making of, you know, music is my main thing, that people aren't gonna like, not everybody's gonna dig what you do, you know, like you really have to like, you know, shop it around and like get it in front of people and, you know, find your own audience. It's like, so, you know, even
that's so scary because the first person that says it sucks, you want to like put it in a drawer and never revisit it again, you know?
I know. And you know, the anodyne of that too is like sometimes when people tell me they like something, I'm like, but do you really like it? Like, do you really like this? Do you get what I'm trying to do? And you know, I think one thing about like being creative, it's like it's a very, I don't know, it's sort of like a guarded insecurity, but also this like compulsion to like share what you're doing with people. Like it's a very odd mindset as far as humanity goes, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. It's crazy stuff, man. Are you you got anything like new coming out that you want to promote or anything you're got boiling on the back burner?
You know, I got that short film I did about the band. The film's called Music Between Songs.
Uh-huh.
And if you want to check out any of my work, I guess, you could either go to, you could Google my name, or you could go to Vimeo and put my name in, or you could go to youtube.com/StrangeCustomsTV.
Uh-huh.
You know, nothing to Nothing to specifically promote, other than that. Go check it out, and I'm very appreciative of anybody that wants to watch something I've done and wants to discuss it, or hit me up about something, or I like to think of myself as somebody that would consider any opportunity or proposition, or I'm a collaborative guy, so I like working with new people and musicians, and I'm interested in making a motorcycle film. If somebody thought somebody would be interesting, or somebody would even be willing to talk or show me their garage or whatever. There's a starting point for everything, and I just I like to think going into 2019 and just kind of setting some new goals for myself, that I feel like I'm open to any opportunity, and I just really want to make something that I like myself. I think that's the big one for this year. Make myself happy.
Yeah, me too, man. Absolutely. Cool. Well, hey, it was really a pleasure talking to you, buddy.
Yeah, man. We should definitely do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, we will.
And that was my conversation with Joeseph Zentil. Again, you can follow Joey on Instagram. His handle is @JoeyPaycheck. That's all one word. In the show description, I will include links to his Instagram, and as well as his Vimeo and YouTube channels, so you can check out some of his film work and music videos and whatnot. The way that I get traction with this show is not by e-begging through Patreon or PayPal or Subscribestar, or doing like super boring read-throughs for gold IRAs or Boll and Branch sheets or anything like that. The only way that I get traction with this podcast is for you to spread the word to your friends and family. So what I ask everyone to do is, in lieu of asking for a contribution, I simply ask that you share this podcast with one friend. So if you are listening to this podcast, I don't want your $1 per episode. I don't want your subscription. I'm not going to beg you to buy a t-shirt. Okay. That stuff's nice. Okay. That works for some people, but that's not my business model. My business model is simply this. I put in the work to create these podcasts, and I ask you, the listeners, to spread the word on your Instagram, on your Facebook, on your Twitter. Text it to a friend who is a creative type, someone who likes cars or trucks or hot rods or vans or music or film or writing or photography or any of the many creative topics that I cover on the show. That is the primary way that I grow the audience and help spread the word about Rulers and Riders and Country Nuggets. Another way that you can help me is just simply go to iTunes, leave a 5-star review with a little blurb about what you think of the show, and that will help me move up into the ratings and get this content out to other people who will enjoy it. It really does make a difference. If you are listening to this 3rd episode of the season and you haven't told somebody about the podcast, or you haven't posted it on your social media, go do it now. Help me out. I give you free content. All I ask you to do is just help me out and spread the word. Next week will be a Country Nugget show. I'll try to expand it a little bit. That was some of the feedback I got, that the show was too short, even though I do try to keep these episodes to around an hour or so. I do appreciate your feedback. the best way to give me feedback is to give us a follow on Instagram, and that is rulers underscore and the word AND underscore writers. So give us a follow there. Let me know what you think about the show. Any feedback or constructive criticism is much appreciated. That's about all I got for now. I am on my way out the door to go see Josh Card play here in Indianapolis. So thanks a lot for tuning in to Rulers and Riders. We'll see you next week. And as always, we will see you down the road.